Just when I thought modern SpongeBob couldn't get any more uninspired, unfunny, and downright hopeless, I was subjected to this.
Wait for me! It's a good thing I have homeowners insurance.
What does it mean for an idea for an episode of a show to be bad? Is it possible for a show to run out of ideas? These are the questions I asked myself while watching the episode Home Away from Home. Stay tuned for my findings. Chapter 1. Who thought this was a good idea for an episode? After a dull first minute of wasting the audience's time with SpongeBob and Patrick being loud and Squidward being annoyed with zero meaningful laugh lines in between, we get to the central question of the episode.
Have you ever wondered, what does your house do when you go out?
No, not really. And I think my lukewarm reaction to this house premise is not so much the result of it just being a bad idea, though it kind of is, we'll get to that in a bit, but more so that there isn't anything about the houses being alive that communicates any sort of theme or message. They just kinda are houses that talk and stuff. Since the episode had to give them something to do, they whip up this kinda half-baked kidnapping plot where Patrick's rock house gets taken away by some guys in a truck. This is a common writing problem where a show has the audacity to expect me to care about the safety of a character that it has done no work to make me care about. In a story, a character being in danger only matters insofar as the audience has been made to care about that character. Now you might be thinking, isn't that a little harsh? Shouldn't we be concerned about someone's safety no matter what? And yes, that is true for actual living things. But the thing about fiction is that it isn't real. So when I say that a show has to do the work to make me care about the safety of a character, I do not mean that they have to convince me that their life holds value. They have to convince me that they even have life at all. So how did they try to do that with Patrick's rock house?
What did Rocky say?
Oh great, it's another character in the group who doesn't actually talk, so the writers don't have to write actual dialogue. Didn't they just do this with that one old-timey computer in the Karen friend group in Karen's Clatch? In this episode, it's even worse though, because unlike in Karen's Clatch, where the non-speaking character is just kind of there to be a part of the group, the narrative of this episode hinges on you caring deeply about the safety of Patrick's rock house. And the fact that I don't even hear the thing talk or have any real semblance of its personality, I just don't care. And to make matters worse, the rock house double dips on uninspired cartoon tropes, because not only does he not talk, but he's also like super profound guys, you just can't hear it.
That's very profound, Rocky.
Yeah, and he said it in Latin.
How is the rock speaking Latin? Wouldn't the fact that the audience can't understand it mean that the rock moving is already speaking a different language and Squidward's house is translating? So it's speaking rock moving language in Latin? Maybe it's like how there are some different languages of sign language? Whatever, I'm clearly giving this more thought than the writers did. So then, SpongeBob's house and Squidward's house go after Patrick's rock to go rescue him, and this leads me into another central issue with this episode. The protagonists have absolutely no personality whatsoever. Like, Squidward's house literally has more personality in that one scene in Secret Box where it's trying to look into the box than it does in an entire episode where it's moving around and has dialogue. You would think that the houses would reflect the owners, and I get it. That would have been too obvious, so they didn't want to write them that way. But having the houses have no personality at all is just worse. And why are SpongeBob and Squidward's houses such great pals? What makes SpongeBob and Squidward an interesting dynamic is that they have these clashing personalities. There is nothing interesting about a scene where two characters just kind of chit-chat about how they slept with no added conflict or tension between them. Like, if I wanted to experience a discussion about how someone slept last night, I just have my normal life. I really don't need to see small talk portrayed through talking houses. And I get it, they're trying to subvert expectations. See, you think Squidward's house would also be annoyed at SpongeBob being loud and keeping him up at night, but nope, it's actually Squidward's complaining that kept the house from sleeping. But isn't it so obvious that this is just the writers going, what would the audience not expect Squidward's house to say? Rather than, what is the best thing for the character to say to serve the story? Which is a key difference between bad and good writing. Chapter 2. The Toy Story Comparison. So when the two houses lose track of Patrick's rock, they ask some people for help. And look, I was already not sold on the premise of this episode, but this moment made me want to ask for a refund on something I didn't even buy in the first place. So them being seen by people and known to be living houses just has no stakes to it at all? This got me thinking about a story with a similar premise of inanimate object comes alive when no humans are around, that actually thought these things through. Toy Story. See, that film franchise takes the question of what do toys do when we don't see them and introduces us to an entire world of living toys. But what makes me buy the premise of Toy Story, where I reject the premise of Home Away from Home, is that within the universe of Toy Story, the living toy characters experience conflicts that are, on the surface, only something a toy can deal with, but below the surface, something anyone can relate to. The toy's desire for purpose and being played with by Andy, Woody's fear of being replaced, Buzz grappling with his own identity as a toy. This is how you can use a completely out there idea to tell a story we can relate to. What's relatable about this moment where the fish get scared of the houses? Isn't it weird when living houses talk to you? Okay, they don't though, so all this means diddly squat. And even with the actual plot of the episode being that Rocky gets kidnapped, okay, that's something a person can relate to, wanting to protect those that they love, but why is that a house thing? It's more of a rock thing than anything else, getting carried off. Like, that doesn't usually happen to houses. Again, to compare it to Toy Story, both the magical element of that plot and the more grounded human element of the story work together because the things that happen in the plot are things that make sense to us as something a toy would go through. And this brings me to the central issue of Home Away from Home. There is no defined relationship between the houses and the humans, or should I say, the fish people. In Toy Story, the relationship between toy and human is completely clear and a central driver of everything that happens in the movie. When humans are around, toys act like toys. When they aren't, they can move around. The reason for this is never explicitly stated, nor is it ever explicitly stated why the toys are even alive at all. And that's okay that it's never stated, because the movie didn't need to waste your time bogging you down with all of those unimportant details. And the fact that those details aren't fully revealed to us allows the story to play out. Now, you might be thinking, Home Away from Home doesn't go into those details either, but here's the major difference. While Toy Story didn't take the time to spell out the rules of toy-human interaction, you can tell that there is some consistency to what those rules are, and the rules of the world contribute to the overall story. For example, Woody is powerless when it comes to convincing Andy not to play with Buzz Lightyear more than him, because he can't directly communicate with Andy, which leads him to making his central bad decision of the film, which is to sabotage Buzz by trying to knock him behind a desk so Andy would notice him more. Let me ask you, is there anything even a little bit like that in Home Away from Home? How come the houses can try to talk to these people? How come Squidward's house can eject unwanted fish from his nose? Why can the pineapple attack these prison guards? And if they can do these things, why is it that there are any stakes at all to SpongeBob and Patrick coming home to find that their houses are alive? And if you actually want to sit there and tell me that this inconsistency didn't take you out of the episode, I'm just going to assume you're being willingly contrarian. And this next point is kind of a sucker punch, but the concept of what if toys are alive, it's just more interesting than what if a house was alive. You know, like most toys already look like living things, and when kids play with toys, they act like they're alive. So there's just a little more there, while the house thing is already kind of a losing idea. And you might be thinking, is it fair to compare Toy Story, a feature film, to Home Away from Home, an 11-minute SpongeBob episode? And in plenty of ways, no, it isn't. There's probably plenty of classic SpongeBob episodes, fantastic episodes, that don't capture the same emotional feeling of one of the greatest animated franchises of all time. But what I am trying to communicate by bringing up Toy Story is to point out that when you want to do a high concept, like what if not alive thing actually is alive, it needs to exist within some sort of central fictional logic that supports a deeper story. And if the narrative fails to do that, then it fails as a narrative, no matter what medium it's presented in. Chapter 3. What even is an ending? Figuring out an ending to a story is difficult. You have to come up with a satisfying conclusion to the narrative, you have to invoke some kind of emotional reaction in the climax, and you have to tie together the main themes of the story. Or, if you're this episode, you can just have a bunch of stuff happen. So before we get to the ending where they break Patrick's rock out of jail, there are some other building characters the story shoves in our face that are just even more of a waste of our time. First, we got this condemned building that talks like an old person. Get it? It's an old building, so it sounds like an old guy. No broader themes, no broader story. I'm getting dizzy repeating myself at this point. But then we get a scene with the lighthouse, and the lighthouse acts like some kind of shady criminal dude, and they bribe him with light bulbs. Get it? Because a lighthouse would like light bulbs. Look me in the face and tell me that the writers of this episode weren't sitting in a room just going, sure, I guess that's what they'll do, when they wrote this scene. Then we get to the final action sequence of this episode, which is a complete joke. For some reason, they start off all stealthy, but then they're like, there's too many guards, and then they just kind of plow right through them, squirting them all with pineapple juice like it's nothing, and then they get stopped by the jail itself. Again, like I said earlier about the episode not having any pre-established rules, we saw earlier that the houses came to life because their owners left. But now the jail is alive and moving around, but wouldn't a jail pretty much always have people in it? So the jail can just come alive whenever? And look, I can forgive little lapses in logic like this. Toy Story has a ton of them. Like, come on, no security cameras ever caught one of those toys moving? Get out of here. But the story of Toy Story is so well told that I can forgive the inevitable need to suspend my disbelief that would come out of any story like this. But with Home Away from Home, not only is its central story so weak that I am not motivated to want to forgive these lapses in logic, I can tell that these lapses in logic are the subject of pure laziness in telling its story, rather than a sincere attempt to create a believable magical world that one could poke some holes in if you decide to be a little nitpicky. Another moment that shows just how incompetent modern SpongeBob is in regard to endings is how they get away from the jail.
Maybe I've misjudged you.
It's like they aren't capable of coming up with an actual way to convince the jailhouse to let them go. Probably because this episode is so devoid of themes that what even would it say? So they instead lean into this whole character we can't even hear thing and just have the jail guy explain how it was such a profound speech. It just goes to show that there really aren't any cheat codes when it comes to telling a meaningful story. You have to face storytelling head on. When you try to do all these shortcuts and ways of getting around telling an actual meaningful story, it all just fails miserably. Then, to hastily duct tape together this trash heap of an episode, we end with a long-winded chase sequence. It just goes on with these houses going over hills or whatever with that SpongeBob something chaotic is happening music behind it. Again, everything that came before it is so inconsistent in terms of the rules of this fictional scenario, and I'm just completely uninvested in the stakes because of that. Why does it all of a sudden matter if SpongeBob and Patrick get home before the houses? Other fish have seen them. It's so obvious that they were like, crud, there's another minute of runtime left after the prison scene. Okay, let's have them do the rolly thing and make sure it's extra long and extra pointless, so it takes up a lot of time. Dang, still need another 15 seconds in there. Yeah, have them get in the wrong spots and switch around. That'll kill some time. Oh, and then at the very end, let's just not care about any of the already flimsy stakes we set up and just have the jail come back and the houses all run away because what if unexpected? Chapter 4. Is modern SpongeBob out of ideas? So, fellow SpongeBob-focused YouTuber Ava recently covered this very same episode, and he titled his video, Modern SpongeBob is Out of Ideas. Now, I like Ava a lot. I'm actually a genuine fan of his channel, and I respect his contribution to the fight against AI SpongeBob channels like SpongeTruths. Ava's criticism of the episode was spot on, and also very different from my own. You should watch his video. I don't disagree with a single point he said, but what I would like to comment on is the title. Now, this isn't really an issue with Ava. Saying that something that a creative property that has been around for decades that is putting out much worse quality content is running out of ideas is a common colloquial term. But is it actually accurate to the situation? Are ideas this finite resource that one can truly run out of? I mean, think about it. If it were truly possible to run out of creative ideas, wouldn't that have happened already? Or perhaps it's specific to the show itself. Maybe there's virtually unlimited ideas out there, but once a certain show has been made, there then becomes a finite amount of ideas that can fit that specific show. Perhaps as far as the characters in the world of SpongeBob goes, they've really done everything they can do, and all we're left with is living houses. I don't believe that this is true, and if you take a second to consider giant numbers with lots of zeros, you won't believe this either. While there are a finite number of things that we can observe in order to write stories about, that finite number is so incalculably large that it's gonna take a bit more than 17 seasons of Bikini Bottom antics to even scratch the surface. Is it possible that the concept of believing that SpongeBob is running out of ideas almost lets them off the hook a little bit? The reason that we get episodes like Home Away from Home that are downright uninspired has nothing to do with some imaginary tree of ideas that no longer bears fruit, but it is instead the result of actual material conditions behind the scenes that happen with long-running shows. If a show survives as long as SpongeBob, there is a sense of security that they're still going to get picked up. This security leads not only to complacency from the writing staff, but also leads to lower investment from the powers that be. Beyond that, the fact that the show and the characters are so recognizable gives them guaranteed viewership that was earned by the much more well-written earlier seasons. This is why I'll never understand why people argue with me that it's okay when some stories are shallow. Like, if it was okay, how come no new show would ever be able to get away with an episode like this? And the only reason SpongeBob gets to get away with it is because it's SpongeBob. We, as a culture, just enough value well-made art with deep themes and messages that, as a rule, we generally don't accept shallow stories. However, there is one cultural force stronger than our desire for deep storytelling, that being our desire for familiarity and, of course, our sense of nostalgia. And this is one of the only forces powerful enough to break through our desire to have better stories. Chapter 5: The Conch Street Effect. Real quick before we get into the next chapter, just want to advertise channel memberships and my Patreon. I'm going to start trying to do a little more with that for the more dedicated fans of the channel, so please, if you can consider checking it out, I'd really appreciate it. Link in the description. So, speaking of nostalgia, I want to talk about why this episode that I just tore apart might be spoken of positively by others. And it's a phenomenon that I would like to call the Conch Street effect. So this is something I first noticed over on my podcast channel, Jackson Fanelli Podcast. Check it out. On that channel, I mostly go over AI content farms, and the main issue with things like content farms are the fact that they do just about anything to get clicks. Anything except make good videos. I could talk about it for hours. I mean, I literally do. Go check out that channel. It's great. But I just want to focus on one little strategy that I've noticed specifically with SpongeBob content farms, which is Conch Street thumbnails. Like, look at these thumbnails. These are all from infamous AI channel SpongeTruths, and they all depict Conch Street from SpongeBob with some kind of alteration. Either an alteration that was actually from an episode, or a straight-up edit. Now, on its own, I don't think there's anything wrong with utilizing a thumbnail style that helps bring more viewers to your channel. And there are plenty of legitimate good creators out there who have utilized this thumbnail strategy. Like friend of the channel, Cartoon Corey. Heck, even I'm trying it out in this video, but I'm doing one of those fancy thumbnail tests, so if you're watching this video a few days after release and this was the thumbnail of the video, then look at that. Even I succumbed to the Conch Street effect. But why does this happen? Well, Conch Street as a location is pretty much, bar none, the most well-known cartoon location pretty much ever. This is for a few reasons. Beyond it being a part of a show as popular as SpongeBob, it just looks really unique. You know, compared to something like The Simpsons house, I mean, sure, it's iconic, but it's just a house. It doesn't have that immediate visual oomph that Conch Street has. Anyway, I think that's why Home Away from Home exists. Behind the scenes, they realized the nostalgic value of these houses and thought that crafting a whole episode based around them, with just about no other writing substance, would be enough. And maybe it was. Genuinely, let me know if you liked this episode. And if you did, is the reason just because it was cool to see an alternate version of iconic houses you grew up seeing? And look, I don't want to make you feel bad for enjoying this episode. It's okay if you got some banal entertainment from the visuals or the voice performances. But I think we can all agree that from a writing perspective, it's just indefensible. In a way, the SpongeBob writers just taking Conch Street and using it to get attention for a subpar episode is not too dissimilar to SpongeTruths using an alternate Conch Street to get clicks on an AI-written video. I hesitate to say that because I do like to keep a pretty strict divide between things that do or do not contain AI, because AI completely invalidates any creative work that it is used in, but I really can't help but notice that comparison, and I think it really speaks to how cynical an episode like this really is. Hey, thank you so much for watching. Once again, I'm gonna keep advertising my Camp Coral video. It's my best video on the channel, where I go over all 75 episodes of this disaster of a spinoff. Or if you'd like to see the aforementioned anti-AI SpongeBob channel live streams, you can click on this link right here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.